In the bustling heart of Cleveland, Ohio, where the glitter of the waterfront meets the gritty reality of everyday hustle, the Lakeside Grill was always packed on Friday nights. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the power of small moments to change lives, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to Kindness True Stories. Also, tell us in the comments where in the world are you watching from. Amid the clatter of dishes and the din of conversations, waitress Sarah Morgan moved with a tired grace, her feet aching in worn-out shoes. At 22, she carried the weight of her world on her shoulders, mounting medical bills for her ailing mother, rent that was perpetually late, and a quiet dream of finishing her nursing degree that seemed to drift further away with each passing month. On this particular Friday, she was assigned a party of 10 celebrating a boisterous birthday, a table that would demand nearly 3 hours of her, constant attention refilling sodas, cutting cake, handing out plates, and carefully splitting the check 5 ways. Unbeknownst to her, at the head of that table sat Thomas Kensington, a billionaire investor so shielded by his wealth and privacy that few recognized his face. Kensington was a man who believed the world had become entitled and ungrateful, and he had come to this unassuming restaurant with a calculated cold test. He wanted to see if basic human decency still existed. When the material reward was stripped away, and he had instructed his guests, a mix of assistants and colleagues sworn to secrecy, to follow his lead. When the $300 bill arrived, Kensington meticulously placed 5 single-dollar bills on the table as a tip, a deliberate and paltry sum for such extensive service. He then watched, his steely gaze hidden behind a glass of water, waiting for the inevitable reaction of greed and anger he had come to expect from the world. Sarah Morgan picked up the leather bill holder, her heart sinking as she saw the 5 crumpled $1 bills beside the credit card slip. For a fleeting second, the exhaustion, the strain, and the sheer unfairness of it all surged within her. She had spent her entire shift catering to their every need, smiling through her own fatigue, and this was the thanks she received. A hot, sharp retort rose in her throat, the words, "I'm not a charity," echoing in her mind as they had for another waitress in a viral, satirical tale from that very same city. She could have made a scene. She could have stormed over and demanded decency. But as she looked at the birthday girl laughing, surrounded by friends, Sarah thought of her own mother who always said, "You never know what silent battle someone else is fighting." Perhaps, she thought, this group was facing a silent battle of their own. Swallowing her pride and her justified frustration, she walked calmly to the table, not to confront, but to complete her service. She looked at Thomas Kensington and, with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes but was genuine in its effort, said softly, "Thank you so much for choosing Lakeside Grill tonight. I hope you all had a wonderful celebration. Is there anything else I can get for any of you before you head out?" Her voice was steady, devoid of sarcasm or malice. The reaction at the table was a stunned silence. Kensington had braced for outrage, for a scene that would confirm his cynical worldview. He was prepared for a version of the viral satire to play out before him. He was not prepared for grace. Sarah's kindness, in the face of his deliberate provocation, struck him with the force of a physical blow. It was a selfless act, completely devoid of the expectation of reward. As the group began to file out, Kensington lingered. He saw Sarah, now at another table, laughing warmly with an elderly couple, her earlier disappointment masterfully concealed. He saw her help a busboy clear a heavy tray without being asked. In that moment, the billionaire's clinical experiment shattered, replaced by a profound and uncomfortable humility. He had tested her character with a meager $5, and she had responded with a richness of spirit his millions could never buy. Later that night, from the stark silence of his penthouse overlooking the very lake by the restaurant, Thomas Kensington couldn't erase the image of Sarah's tired but sincere smile. He had spent a lifetime building an empire on the principle that every person had a price, that every action was a transaction. This young waitress, with her $5 tip and boundless dignity, had just disproved his entire life's thesis. The following Monday, a sleek black car arrived at Sarah's modest apartment building. A courteous driver delivered a handwritten note requesting her presence at the offices of Kensington Ventures at her earliest convenience. Assuming it was a complaint or some strange corporate formality, Sarah arrived in her best clothes, a knot of anxiety in her stomach. She was ushered into an office of breathtaking scale and luxury, and behind a desk of polished ebony sat Thomas Kensington. He rose, introduced himself not with his famous name, but simply as Tom from Table 7, and asked her to sit. He did not mince words. He confessed to his cruel test, laid bare his jaded motives, and then, with a gravity that filled the room, he apologized. It was an apology not just for the tip, but for his presumption, for reducing her humanity to a data point. Then he made a promise. He told Sarah that her act of unanticipated kindness had been the most valuable lesson he had received in decades. He informed her that he was restructuring his philanthropic foundation to focus on individuals, demonstrating extraordinary compassion in the face of adversity. And he told her that she was its first beneficiary. He would pay off her mother's medical debts in full. He would cover her tuition for nursing school, not as a loan, but as a grant. Furthermore, he offered her a paid internship at his foundation to help identify and lift up others like her. Sarah's life changed, not with a dramatic, table-flipping moment of anger, but with a quiet conversation that rewrote her future. Thomas Kensington, true to his word, rewrote his will that very week. A significant portion of his estate was now dedicated to the Morgan Initiative, a program designed to find and support hidden angels in service industries. The story, however, did not go viral in the way the satirical Megan Hollis story did. There was no mugshot, no police report, no scandalous headline. Kensington and Sarah agreed to keep the details private, protecting the purity of the lesson from the distorting lens of public fame. But in Cleveland, a few regulars at the Lakeside Grill noticed that Sarah Morgan no longer worked there. They heard a rumor she was in school, that her mother was doing better. And if a very wealthy, older gentleman was sometimes seen having a quiet cup of coffee in a diner, anonymously leaving a generous tip for a struggling student waiter. Well, that was just a nice coincidence. The Billionaire's test ended not with a verdict on human nature, but with its redemption. He went looking for confirmation of misery and found a reason for hope instead. All because a waitress with every right to be angry chose to be kind, proving that the most transformative wealth is not counted in dollars, but in humanity. Her simple, gracious response to a $5 tip didn't just change a bill, it changed a heart, a life and a legacy forever. Thank you for watching this story of unexpected kindness. If this story touched your heart, please show your support for more content like this. Remember to like, share, and subscribe to my channel, Kindness True Stories, where we believe every act of goodness deserves to be told. Your support helps us share more light in the world.